As I mentioned briefly earlier, it started with 2002 when 2 junior high school students were killed by American Army vehicle, and various rumors and angers against American Army started, and the candlelight vigil went on over a year, requesting the renegotiation of Korea's status of forces agreement with the U.S. And later, No Samo, which is a society who loved No Moo-hyun, contributed a lot to the presidential election in 2002. And again, they played enormous role against presidential impeachment. So they achieved electoral victory during No Moo-hyun administration, before No Moo-hyun administration, and also impeachment overturned. So we see 2 important consequences here. The lack of popular participation in public life is often lamented, as I mentioned already. Yet, the current wave of protests have worrying implications for democratic systems. Spontaneous, uncontrolled flow of information and prompt response have 2 important consequences. First, reliance on the official sources of information dramatically decreases, as people tend to rely on unverified information freely available online. Second, an emotional approach to politics replaces a more rational one. Citizens or netizens are less concerned about pondering the advantage or problems associated with the introduction of an FTA between South Korea and the United States, but seem to be more eager at expressing or channeling their anger against authority, whatever their actual faults. This targets one of the pillars of democratic system, namely the fact that representatives, elected officials that for a fixed period of time rule the country and are eventually accountable to the electorate. This new type of politics, called digital populism, calls for a renegotiation of the contract between electors and elected. Then we may need to think about what populism is exactly, and then how to conceptualize digital populism. Populism covers various wide range of ideological spectrum, and mainly although it started from the U.S. in early time, it has empirical data on Europe, Latin America. And East Asian case, they have peculiar charismatic populist elites, such as Chun Sui-ben or No Moo-hyun or Ko Izumi. Some populist elites they do not feel offended when they are called as a populist. And some people then again accuse another elite as a populist just to offend them without having proper view on real policy performance, but just to attract more voters. And also in Korean, populism has interesting points. When they say 민중, people-centered ideology, populism has a very good notion. But when it comes as a populism in English, it turns out to be populist elites attracting more voters, talking to the people directly without the practical views of the performance. And also populism has this antagonistic dichotomy between the pure people and the corrupt elite. So when we just look at populism itself, focusing on the people, direct participation, many scholars give credits on it. That is core element of democracy, true democracy. However, some scholars see populism as a pathological ideology because there's a strong dichotomy between people. Pure people against the corrupt elite, moral us, dangerous others. That's where I see the problem of populism. As a solution, populism proposes unmediated link between the people and the leader, thus leading to unmediated popular sovereignty. So populism is mainly concerned with direct participation of the people, and this internet technology can bring the reality to populism. So populism has involved various segments. Sometimes they talk about elites, sometimes they look at ordinary people with social movement, and often they are not united by strong or cohesive ideological glue. So defining populism itself can be very difficult and slippery, as Taggart notes. Taggart describes populism as an episodic, anti-political, empty-hearted, chameleonic celebration of the heartland in the crisis. For Taggart, it is a combination of a movement, leader, regime, or idea. And I have to mention, when they covered the ideology from the left, center, to the extreme right, in the case of Europe, especially in the UK, populists more focus on extreme right ideology, which has very strong views of racism. So they do not want foreigners to stay in a country. They do not want foreign workers working in their own. So there's a very strong antagonistic ideas about globalization, about ethnic views. To make it clear about populism, there is an analysis by Abt and Ruman. Antagonistic relationship between the people and the elite, that is the first category. And the second, populism calls for the restoration of popular sovereignty. Populism favors direct democracy, as populists believe democracy should be derived from the people, the power of the people. So Zaslov maintains that populist emphasis on popular sovereignty is dangerous, as this threatens pluralism and democratic representative institutions. The people are understood as constituting a homogeneous unity. So the people are a non-plural, virtuous, and homogeneous groups that are part of the everyday and the normal core of country Zaslov. Country. Sorry, I did not put Zaslov in the bracket properly. The people being one, it can only have one voice. This reinforces the us versus them antagonism, which in ultimate analysis can even lead to overthrowing the established political order. So we see majority of people chanting on the street with candlelight. Probably they are majority of people. But then again, they also could be minority, noisy minority, excluding another minority behind their back who are not on the street. So when populism meets digital technology, the impacts of populism can be more powerful and explosive. So when populist activities take place in a highly developed IT environment, populism acquires a critical tool which can ease recruitment of like-minded people, mobilize them, as well as further intensify social antagonism